Hi, everybody. So, I had a good time reviewing so far Carrie and Children of the Corn. And so I wanted to do another review for you today. But I was going to do Christine, and unfortunately, it was on Netflix just like a week ago, and now it's not on there anymore. So instead, I'm going to review the 2019 version of Pet Sematary. Now, I did see it once, and I thought that there were good things and bad things about it, but and the same thing with the one from the 80s. Um, Now, as you know, Pet Cemetery was released in, I believe it was 1983. Stephen King, of course, it's Stephen King, and Stephen King wrote it when he had moved into a new place, and there was a very busy road going back and forth, and there were always a lot of trucks there. And his daughter's cat was run over, and his one of his sons started running toward the road, and luckily, at the very last minute, he was able, either Stephen King grabbed him and stopped him, or he tripped on his own feet and fell. But for whatever reason, he didn't go onto the street. But King's mind, going to the darkest place possible, decided to write a novel out of it. And fun fact, a few years ago, the actual house that Stephen King lived in while he was writing that book, I cannot remember the exact location. It wasn't Orono. It was, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry, I'm not a Mainer. Um, but it had actually gone up for sale, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous house. Sorry, I have the tablet in my lap that I'm watching this on, and there was just a big bright light. So if the light in here fluctuates, it is a little bit dark. So having this on my steering wheel here probably allows you to see me a little bit better. But it is gradually getting light out. I just got off work and it's like 7:30. So okay, so the Creed family, as we know, is moving into a new house. Lewis is going to be starting a new job, and there's church. Now, I didn't in the original. I will do some comparisons with the original film. Um, in the original cat church. Now, I love Russian blue kitties. I think they're just gorgeous. But the cat that they chose didn't look anything like I had pictured church. And I like that they picked a long-haired tabby for this one, because I always had the paperback version of the book, and church on that cover, he had very long brown hair. And actually, my friend Opal had a cat named Byron that looked a whole lot like I pictured Church from the original. And but except, of course, he wasn't a mean kitty. Byron was just the darlingest cat I've ever met. I mean, he loved to crawl right up on me, and I took care of her cats for a couple of weeks one time when she was moving, and Byron would never leave me alone. He would follow me in the bathroom to cuddle. It was a lovely, wonderful cat. And, that's one of the things that I always felt really bad about. I mean, even after all of the things that happened, Church was still a cat, and he still wanted to cat, like cats do. But everybody was so mean to him because he stank. And it was, I always felt really bad for poor Church because he just was not right. So, okay. So now the family's out here, and the casting is not too bad. Ellie's a little bit older than she was in the book, but Gage is about the same age. And yeah, like they don't look anything like they were described in the book. Not that that's a bad thing, but I thought that the casting in the original, the 1989 version, was also perfect, just spectacular. Especially Fred Gwynn. He was the perfect Judd Crandall. And the guy looked a lot like I had pictured Lewis. Actually, you know what? Here's another funny thing. I pictured Lewis looking a lot like Jim Belushi for some reason. I don't know why. So this guy, I think his name's, is it Jason Clark? Not 100% sure. I'd have to look that up. But he played John Connor in Terminator Genesis. Now, you know what? I'm an unabashed fan of all things Terminator, so I didn't have a problem with Genesis, but I thought that the casting wasn't so great. But not quite John Connor. So they're lying in bed. They're talking about staying at home. Blah blah blah. Whatever. We'll get moving. Um. So they're actually now in the book that they met. You know, the minute they like the day they first moved in. But in this one, they've got him going to work already, and then I guess it's later. I don't know if it's like the weekend or something. And Ellie finds a deadfall. Now, this thing is absolutely massive. Like, it really is truly a barrier to the other side. Um, and Ellie's trying to climb it, and it's like really scary and ominous. Oh, oh, oh! I shouldn't laugh. She's hurt herself. Now, John Lithgow is one of my all-time favorite actors. He is so great in everything he does, and it's unfortunate that this wasn't as well received because I think he was not he was underused in this film, but he's pretty good. He has this kind of weird Santa thing, and I especially like the detail. He's got the white beard, but he's got a ring of yellow around his mouth, which is gross, but that's what long-term smokers have. And you know, Judd was a smoker without really hammering it home the way the book does. Okay, so he's introducing himself to Ellie, and now telling the story. They're making a reference to the story of when Rachel was a little girl and her sister was sick. Now, in the book, this wasn't even introduced until way later. So I think by putting it here, it sort of diminishes just the emotional impact that you get later when we find out why Rachel is so scared of death and has such issues about death and dying. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so now we've got the family. For some reason, Ellie makes friends with Judd, which sets up the change in the ending. I didn't care for that, by the way. Okay, now what have we got here? Okay, now one thing that I thought that they did really well was the death of Pascal, Victor Pascal. The makeup on that was so gory and so freaking awesome. I know it's a weird thing to praise, but this movie didn't get a lot of good reviews, so I am gonna give it props for that. Like it was that the makeup in that was great. So Victor dies, and Lewis has his scary dream where he follows him, tells him, "Don't do that." One thing I noticed about the 1989 film version that I didn't really pick up on this one, but the 1989 film version, or the original, was 89, 90, whenever it came out. One thing that I did like about Pet Sematary, the original one, that I noticed the first, like when I watched it when it was on Netflix, like 10 years ago, was if you listen to it with the headphones, the sound design was really creepy. Like, they did such a great job with that. Okay, so it's weird to watch this out of context and kind of jumbled and on fast forward because I have to get through it quick. Okay, so now Rachel's telling the story about a dumbwaiter, and they added all this stuff too. That, I mean, the story's creepy enough without having to add all this stuff about the dumbwaiter. But I guess it sort of tells the story. It's the rule of three. If you want somebody to remember it, tell it 3 times. So we introduce it in the beginning, And then Rachel tells the story. Oh, and then at the very end, her Zelda pops up again. Rule of 3. All right, so now half the family is away, and Judd and Lewis are going to bury poor Church. And this walk through the woods is done pretty well, I will say. Those scenes in the book were absolutely terrifying. They were so scary. One thing that I really liked about the way that it was described in the book was how the land itself was in dispute, because the original guy he would get drunk and give people parcels of land. But the natives were the ones that had the original land claim, but they noped the fuck out of there. They knew how awful it was. They knew the ground was poisoned. So it's like people had title to it, but they just didn't want it because nope. Okay, so now Lewis has to bury his cat. Oh, and now the cat comes back. It's almost like the whole thing is a Shaggy Dog version of that cat came back story. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. Okay. He's got to do it himself. He's got to build a pile of rocks on top of it. And then I love how he tries to say, oh no, he was just unconscious. Okay. So I'm just trying to get through here. So he talks to Ellie about death. And that was another thing that we didn't really get much of a sense of, was that I don't know if they were trying to portray them as just an unhappy family, but we didn't have the warmth and the love that we had in the book. And, everybody seemed kind of pissy all out of the time. Okay, what do we got here? So Ellie is drawing things, and now Lewis finds a creepy picture that Ellie says that Gage drew. Now, okay, when I was 3, I could barely make little marks on the coloring book. No kid is going to make anything that actually looks anything like that. So now he's going to finally ask Judd what the hell they did. And this is the story about Stanny B, and the story about Judd's dog that he buried. And Lewis is looking at pictures of the Wendigo, and he can't kill Church just yet. So he tries to set him free, but the cat came back at Ellie's birthday party. Now, here's the twist in the story. Okay, so from here on in, it's all going to be a spoiler. In the original book, they moved in just before the start of the school year. There were things that happened along the way. Judd's wife died. She's been left out of both movie versions, which is too bad, 'cause she was a really sweet character. And then we find out that Rachel has this death phobia. And then things get worse and worse as Church starts bringing home dead mice and stuff, and Lou's dreams get worse, and things are really dark and gloomy, and he has nightmares about the thing he did, and blah blah blah. So we finally get to this point in the spring, and this is sort of the beginning of the 3rd act. And it's in the book and in the original film, it's Gage that gets run over in the road. Hang on a sec. Sorry, my feed decided to die on me. Okay, so this is all silent. And we've got a much more spectacular train or truck wreck than we had before. And Rachel falls to the ground, and we've got, oh, now in the book it was described as Gage was running, and there was a trail, there was a shoe, there was, and then there was a cap full of blood, and then there was Gage's poor little body. And they kept to the spirit of that, but Ellie is knocked off the road. I understand why they made that choice in terms of how they told the story, but I just don't like it. Maybe because, I don't know, I guess maybe because there was a sense that Gage was so little. He didn't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? The conscience that an older child might have, which is why he was able to be filled with this terrible evil. And so here's the funeral, and Lewis is getting drunk and getting stupid. Now in the book, Rachel's dad was a real dick in the book. He picked what kind of person picks a fight at their grandchild's funeral? Like, come on. But he was a real dick, and he tried to pay off Lewis to stop seeing his daughter. Although why he couldn't just, take the money and then, go back to seeing her on some other point or whatever, I don't know. But I guess that never would have been, never would have flown, right? Okay, and then the one big glaring thing that has always irritated me. Why did anybody ever put up a fucking fence? That's always been the biggest thing that's irritated me about this book and movie. It doesn't even have to be a big fence. One of those little 3-foot high garden fences. Gage would have run right into it. Never would have run into the road. I mean, the cat will still jump over it, but no, the kids are gonna run right into it, and they would have to stop and open it. You can tell them to stop at that point. Anyway, that's always been my biggest pet peeve about this story. Okay, so Lewis is now burying Ellie upstairs in the real cemetery. And now we've got this creepy another thing that I did actually appreciate about this is it does have a really good look, and it has a very, very dark feel, and that's the way that the book felt. It's everything was always cast in shadow. It was always, just on the edge of darkness, and you've got this kind of crumbling old house, and it has a very gothic sensibility to it, and this film does capture that feeling in that sense. Okay, so now Ellie's come home, and she's not right. She's messed up, and now he's washing her hair, and her one eye is like, this is zombie Ellie. Not cool. Although they did go more for the straight up zombie kind of thing. Okay. And now Judd is out. Now he fell asleep waiting for something to happen. This movie is a little bit more gory, I think, than the original version. Okay, so Judd fell asleep in the chair. That cannot be comfortable for anybody. And John Lithgow's a big guy. He fills a lawn chair. All right, let's see here. So now we've got this Judd going through his house, and Ellie comes away, and she's wearing that creepy ass mask. Those masks were an interesting addition, and they certainly, that was another thing about this movie, is that the trailer, in a lot of ways, showed all the best stuff, and the trailer looked really good, but it was better than, I think, than the end product. Okay. And now he's talking in the voice of, or she's talking in the voice of Norma. And now we've got Rachel having bad dreams. After the twist, I think this is really where the narrative fell apart in this version. I think they were trying to go for the jump scares. They were trying to reach a different audience. It just doesn't, I don't know. I don't really, sorry. So now, she's being attacked by Ellie / the ghost of her sister. And now Lewis is running and getting caught. Oh, she just threw off. Oh, poor Gage is screaming. Oh, now Ellie's got the knife. She's looking evil. Okay, I will say again, if you take it on its own merits, Ellie, the actress who played Ellie, she was great. She really is. She's creepy. She moves in a scary way. I would be afraid of this thing coming out at me in the middle of the night. Oh, and there's Church. Sorry. Felt bad for poor Church. Okay, so here she's killing Rachel. And Lewis just found Judd, which was, I thought that was the saddest part of the whole, both the book and the original movie, and this movie too. Judd was such a likable character. One of the best things that King has always done is create these wonderful characters and dialogue and stories and people that sit and spin yarns, and Judd Crandall is probably one of the embodiments of all of that. It's just he was this old guy who had been around since the turn of the century, and he just had all of the stories, and he was the voice of this town, this area, good or bad. He was it. Okay, so now Ellie is dragging her mother to the pet cemetery. Now, this was another part that I thought, this was kind of where it went really off the rails, where Ellie starts dragging people up to the pet cemetery and burying them, and then, they come back and they kill the dad, and then they go up and they bury them again. And now everything's on fire, and Gage is sitting in the car alone, and now we've got a whole zombie family, the zombie creeds. They're all coming for Gage, and that's where it ends. Oh, and there's Church again. Now, did they bury Church? Like, are they just going to keep going in this cycle of killing each other and then dragging them up to the pet cemetery? Or, like, that's kind of what's implied. But are they only going to kill each other? Are they going to kill more people? Or it just, at the very end of it, is really confusing and not particularly, it leaves this kind of confusion and kind of a bad taste in my mouth, as as a viewer and as a King fan and as a fan of the book especially. I have the audiobook, and it's, if you like audiobooks, it's read by Michael C. Hall, who played Dexter on the series, and he does a really great job. And I've been listening to the story again lately and just thinking about how and just thinking about what a great book it was, and how King almost didn't publish it because it just scared him too much. But I think King's fans are probably more forgiving of the darker elements of his books, because that's what we like, right? We sign on to King to be scared. And this movie, it just didn't, if you're only watching it for its own merits, it's not a terrible horror movie. I mean, I've seen so much worse. I mean, obviously, having been a lifelong horror fan, I have that willing suspension of disbelief. But I have the book to compare it to, and the book is so much better. And I think that the cast does the best they can with with the material they have to work with. The pacing is okay, but it starts to spend too much time on the wrong things, and it starts to drag in other areas, and it just is kind of a hot mess by the end of it. Yeah, I don't know. Read the book, watch the original film, and then if you want to watch the 2019 version of Pet Sematary, maybe put all of the other ones away so that you've like forgotten about them, and then in 10 years go back and watch that, and you might enjoy it. But if you're comparing the vastly superior versions, but then again, if you only watch Pet Sematary 2, which I've heard is absolutely terrible, and you only compare it to that, then you might enjoy this one. So anyway, that's my reaction to Pet Sematary, the 2019 version. I don't know if I gave you any insight into it, or if I gave you anything that you might find interesting. But yeah, this you could probably pass on this one. Not really necessary, unless you're like a huge fan, maybe huge fan of John Lithgow. So anyway, hope you're reading lots of great horror. Have a great day.